Hey everybody, Thunder in the Spirit of Crazy Horse. Well, we are in the midst of a firestorm now, just like I said we would be. Ever since Russia intervened in Syria and is taking out all terrorists, it's ignited a firestorm of controversy and lies and propaganda, and we are virtually on the edge, the razor's edge of World War III, in my opinion. It will be a miracle if this doesn't escalate into something much, much bigger than it is. And I told you this would happen because the neocons and the war hawks and all the people in the West and NATO just can't live with the fact that they've been exposed and that Russia is going in and taking out all their bad guys, all the terrorists that were. I don't need to go into detail because most of you have heard me talk about this before, but the terrorists that were put in place and are being used by the West are being taken out, and it's their army, and it's like a slap in the face. And this is a face-off. Okay, it's a face-off with Russia and China, actually, because China's in the mix too. So what we have here is dicey situations. In the military, they would say a snafu. Okay, situation normal, all fucked up. And it's because there's close calls happening already. In other words, there's close calls as far as a fly zone over Syria and who has the right to that fly zone. And it's really, there isn't a no-fly zone over Syria. If there is, it's Russia's territory. And today I heard about some drones that were flying in over Syria. Hello? Doesn't the USA get anything? And the Russians kind of flew up beside them and warded them off and said, time for you guys to leave. And so now NATO and the U.S. is all ticked off about that. This was a provocation in a space that they're really not allowed in. They have no business being there. Russia was invited in to take care of business. And so we know all along that the U.S. and NATO and whoever else is in there has no business being there. They weren't invited. And that they were just trying to overthrow the Assad regime, okay? And there's been so much lies slung back and forth about civilians being killed and a bunch of hypocrisy with that. Some of the ISIS people are taking cover in mosques and using civilians as shields. Okay, I said that was going to happen in my last video. But we're in a dicey situation here, because when I think back on the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I've talked about this before, how much we thought we were on the edge of World War III or complete annihilation. Well, this is 10 times worse, people, maybe 100 times worse. Because you've got aircraft flying around in a space that shouldn't be there, Western aircraft and NATO aircraft, and aircraft flying around in a space that should be there because they were invited. And there's already close calls, like I said with the drone incident. It's like that right there could have been a major incident. And then you have the thing where supposedly Russia flew into Turkey, and they settled that little incident with Turkey on the spot. It was an aggression into an airspace that supposedly they weren't allowed into, and it was an accident, and they talked to Turkey about it, and Turkey said no problem, because Turkey is in alliance with Russia on the pipeline thing that's going in there. The what is the name of it? Stream pipeline. I don't know. It'll come to me later. And the Sultan there is like caught in between a rock and a hard place because NATO came right in, that being a NATO country, and said, you violated this and you're in dangerous territory. And yeah, we're all in dangerous territory right now. We're in supremely dangerous territory. And so we are virtually, walking the razor's edge right now. When I say we, I'm not taking any sides. I'm saying the world at large is on the razor's edge because you got two superpowers with unlimited nuclear capability facing off. And I make no mistake about it, this is a war. It's a propaganda war. It's a war. It's a real war with airplanes and people shooting guns. And the rhetoric that has been coming out of the West is just totally insane. That's what makes me nervous. It's totally insane. You got people calling for, and I'm talking about prominent senators and ex-secretaries of state and all kinds of different people calling for Russian aircraft to be shot down. To be shot down. Hello? So when you have this kind of rhetoric, I told you before, when they took this pie in the face and the slap in the face, this was just the beginning. This was just the beginning. If somebody tries to do something right in this time and space that we're living in right now, in this world that we're living in, if some country like Russia decides to do something right, they're going to suffer immeasurably. But they knew this before they went in. It's almost like a no-holds-barred championship fight right now. So when you try to do something good, like quote-unquote remove terrorists that are terrorists, what could I say? You're going to get flack from the people that are supporting these terrorists. And shouldn't people just outright... See, the thing I don't get is why people don't outright realize from the very get-go here that if somebody is complaining about Russia annihilating terrorists, why would they do that? Unless that they were using these terrorists in a fashion that was covert. Well, that's why they're doing it, because they are using terrorists in a covert manner. And you think about the word terrorists, well, it's really the people that are supporting the terrorists that are the supreme terrorists. And so the USA and West would easily fit into that category. And if people can't see that, well then, I don't think there's any hope, really. I don't think there's any hope, but I think people might be waking up a little bit. But for the most part, people that I talk to or people that I come into contact with in everyday life are so self-centered on their own egos and their own world and their own everyday humdrum life that they don't understand what's going on around them. They don't understand the chaos and the utter darkness that's enveloping the world right now. And that how we are a gnat's ass hair away from all-out nuclear war. I mean, it's a fact. If there's one slip up over there in Syria with the Russians, and if somebody takes something a little bit too far and tries to interfere, let's say, with what's going down over there, they're going to pay a heavy, heavy price, okay? And if there's a slip up, and if there's a bomb that hits something that it ain't supposed to, or if two aircraft come into contact with each other, which is highly likely, or if there's a dogfight, or if there's, in the air, or if there's, I could go. I have a list of about 100 things I could go through that could happen here. And when you got maniacs in the West behind the wheel trying to save face, you're going to increase exponentially. Okay, you're going to increase the chances that something really could happen here. Now, today Russia was shooting off long range. I'm talking 1,500 mile, 1,500. That's like half the width of the United States. They got tons of warship in the Gulf region over there, and they're taking out ISIS from the sea. Now I look at this as two things. Okay, I look at this as Russia's showing the world, and particularly the USA, that they have no problem with the finest military advancements and technology. They have no problem using that, and it's real easy for them to use it. And one look at those missiles coming up off those ships and heading inland towards 1,500 miles across the Mideast and striking pinpoint precision targets within a couple of feet. It's got to make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And if it doesn't, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. And the West should take a real good look at this, and they probably are. They're probably going, well, if they can do that, well, then what other capabilities? I mean, a ship or a sub off the coast of the U.S. could easily do far more damage than what those ships are doing, firing their missiles into the ISIS terrorist territory over there. So I think that's one reason that Russia just said, look, this is what we have. They're putting on a military display right now. And it's a warning to the West. Now, will the West take a warning? That's the question. Will the West take this in stride and say, oops, we better not interfere here? Or will they just ramp it up more and more and send in more drones and cause more possible mishaps? And they're doing all kinds of sneaky things. I mean, I'm forgetting half the stuff I wanted to talk about here, but because I talk off the top of my head, but they're doing all kinds of sneaky things over there. And the next sneaky thing will be that they'll supply some kind of Stinger missile, shoulder launch missiles, to their buddy terrorists over there to take down a Russian plane or something. And then that will be an indirect way of them skirting the edge of World War III. And if a Russian plane goes down because of a missile that was supplied by the West, you see where I'm going with this? Do I really have to explain it in detail? It's just like we got two superpowers. One, I believe, is in the right because they're pulling covers and they're taking care of the quote-unquote problem of the world, which is by the USA's accounts is the whole problem with the world is terrorists. And they want people to live in fear of terrorism, and they have this giant war on terrorism. Yet when somebody takes up the mantle and says, hey, we're going to fight these people, come in and help us, they go, no way. We'd never align ourselves with you. What is this? Isn't this the same common enemy? Well, evidently, this is the covers that have been pulled. No, it's not the same common enemy. The terrorists are USA and West and NATO controlled. Period. End of story. And that's been proven. And why people don't see this, why there's even any rhetoric about it, why there's even any question about it, is beyond me. It's beyond my comprehension that people don't see this. Are they looking at it just like, oh, Russia's the bad guys? Well, of course they are, because of the propaganda, the tons and tons and tons of propaganda, the shit that's being shoveled out by the carload, by the train carload, against a country that is really trying to do something here. And look at the mess that this whole thing, this whole proxy CIA terrorist war against Assad has caused, with the millions of refugees filtering into all these European Union countries. You think that's given them second thoughts about what went down over there? If you want my opinion, Russia intervened just in time, not only to save their own country from infiltration, but to save European Union countries from a horrendous situation. And it's already a horrendous situation, isn't it? It's already a horrendous situation. So I look at all this stuff and I'm just going, man, this is like, I look around at the world, I look around at the wars that are happening right now. I mean, look, when you're sitting there seeing ships shoot off giant smoke plumes and missiles in the air, and them zooming across the Middle East, and planes flying everywhere, and two superpowers going at each other's throats on propaganda levels. I've been watching things pretty closely, and I can honestly say that I think that Russia is really trying to do things right, and that they're trying to counteract propaganda with their own spin, which is normal. If you're being attacked, you're going to defend yourself, right? But the stuff that they're saying, they seem to have evidence for that it's true. Like the West will come up and say, well, there's moderate rebels over there, yet when you go to find a moderate rebel or a moderate terrorist, whatever the hell that is, you can't find them anywhere. They don't even exist. It's just one big conglomeration and mess of terrorists, people with guns going off half-cocked. Excuse me. So where do we go from here? And when you look at the mess around the world, I'm talking financially and war, you see things are ramping up here, aren't they? Is it just me, or are things ramping up here? I don't think it's just me. Okay? And we know that it isn't just me, that things are ramping up. War is hell. I don't like to see any kind of war. I don't like to see anything killed. Okay? I guess there's the lesser of evils, but when you see stuff like this happening, when you see lives being taken, when you see bombs and rhetoric and stuff raining down all over the world, well, then you got to just sit back and go, wow, it's out of control. It's not in control. There's only a false sense of security, or a false sense of control, or a false sense of everything's going to be all right. This is the time when people should be getting down on their knees and asking Great Spirit, or whoever God they have, to keep a close eye on this, okay, and hopefully not to let it get out of hand. But it is out of hand already. I did a video, many videos ago, about we're already in World War III, and we are. It's just that now it's becoming manifest in a physical way. And if it ramps up, it ramps up. And I'm looking at the stock market during all this, and I'm thinking, man, if the stock market doesn't crash now, and I mentioned this before, it's never going to crash. It's never going to crash, because in the past, when you had any kind of news where there was a dicey situation in the world, the stock market took a dive, baby. Whenever war looms on the horizon, and it especially like if it was the U.S. attacking somebody, well then, yeah, the stock market could conceivably not be affected, because they'd say, yeah, we're defending and this is a good thing, and this is. But when another superpower is intervening in the world, and it's not America, it's another superpower, you would think the stock market would take a dive. So that's just another. See, this operation by Putin pulled a lot of covers. It's pulling a lot of covers. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. You have to look at the silver lining, even if you don't like war. You have to look at the silver lining and say, what is the good thing that's being accomplished here? And the good thing is that covers are being pulled and truth is being made known on all kinds of levels. You have to see it. You can't be brain dead. You can't choose not to see things. So people in the council, in the Campfire Council, they're all on top of this. We're all on top of it. We all see what's going on with it. We've all been expecting it. And here it is. Okay. Here it is blatantly in full living color, basically the West pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed with their mindset of overtaking the world and creating puppet dictatorships, and they expanded NATO bases, and they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until finally somebody like Putin in Russia just said, well, like he said at the UN, in so many words, we just can't handle the situation in the world the way it is now. It's unacceptable. It's getting out of hand. And so, here it is, people. Right here in our faces. And so, let's look at it for what it is, and let's try to come down on a truthful side here. Okay. A truthful side. And like I said before, this is a perfect opportunity to be vindicated. Because like I said before, the people in the council, the Campfire Council, have been talking about this a long time. And that's the group that I formed on the internet, and it's a group of people that exchange views and look at things in a realistic and truthful manner and in a sacred manner. Okay. In the manner of looking at history and looking at what's gone down before with the slaughter of indigenous people in this land, and looking at the same modus operandi that has occurred in the past, and watching things very closely to see how this is all going to go down. And it's going down, and I've talked many, many times about you better be outside the cities, you better be in nature, you better be in a place where you might have a chance. Okay, you might have a chance. I'm not saying you will have a chance. I'm saying your odds of having a chance of surviving any kind of moral or economical or economic breakdown, and possible fallout, no pun intended, from warlike actions. That's why I talk about this. That's why Thunder has talked about this time and time and time again, and warned about it, and has been for a long, long time. And you know, it's like that saying, you know, the pilots have a saying, hours of boredom followed by moments of stark terror in the cockpit, because you can be flying along nice and cozy and everything's going cool, and then all of a sudden, boom, a red light comes on in your panel and you're in big trouble. You might lose an engine, and then you're going to have to decide what you're going to do right then. And that's what's happening. That's what I liken this to. I liken this to as a red light flashing in the panel of an aircraft. And the world is the aircraft, and that light is flashing, baby. It's flashing strong right now. And so I would suggest that if you have loved ones, the world is in such an intense, critical situation right now, and it's so dicey that anything could happen, and if you do have loved ones, you're going to want to be near them. That's how bad I think it is. And if you have kindred friends, you're going to want to be in contact with them. And you should do it now. You should do it now, because I don't see this getting any better. Maybe I'm not as much of an optimist as I should be. Because yeah, there's been wars in the past, and things have gone through the changes they're going to go through, and a lot of people died. But you realize how many people died or have been dying in these conflicts? And they just look at it like, well, it's no big. I mean, kids dying, and 200,000 people, and beheadings, and millions of people being displaced around the earth, refugees fleeing across borders. I mean, hell, I heard a report, they're even going through the Channel, okay, which is the train tunnel that goes under the English Channel from France to England, I believe. And the engineers are like going on strike saying, we can't deal with this. We're running over all kinds of people. How they got into that channel and how they're going through there, nobody knows. But that's how panicky these people are right now. And the people in these countries that these refugees are fleeing from, all this horrific situation in the Middle East, the people that are fleeing are looked at as animals, and they're just human beings trying to get to safety. And as they're coming into these other countries, the other countries and the towns around the borders are saying, we can't have this. We put walls up, keep these people out, do whatever you got to do, get them out of here. We don't want them in here. And these are their fellow brothers and sisters, in European countries, fellow European EU countries that are turning against one another. What's that saying in the Bible? Every man's hand will be against his brother. Every man's hand will be against his brother, and the moon shall turn red as blood. Didn't we just have some blood moons? And a lunar eclipse on the blood moon? I don't know. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see where this is all going. It's scary. If you're not frightened right now, You're either one of two things. You're either very spiritual and you've detached yourself from it and said there's no sense in being fearful about this because it's just going to play out. And that's kind of my take. And when I do these videos, I don't mean to frighten people. But what I'm saying about by being frightened, or guess what I'm trying to say is if you don't have a healthy fear, okay, and a healthy fear is just, being cautious about events that you see in your mind, you're going, well, what's going on here, and making plans for it. You're dumbed down if you don't have that. Okay, so when warriors go into battle, okay, if they say they're not scared, they're lying. That's the point I'm trying to make. If a warrior goes into battle and says, I'm not afraid, well, he's lying. Everybody's afraid when they're facing extermination, okay? And so the people that are out there doing la, just going about and doing their bar crawling and all the same shit they were doing before, and go, oh yeah, they're at it again, and man, you better wake up. You really better wake up. Or if you're just carrying on your life as normal and thinking that, oh yeah, this has happened before, another war and this and that, I don't think you realize the technological advances and the capabilities and the mindset of the madmen. This is nothing like when I was growing up. We were very aware of mutually assured destruction, and there were treaties for that and everything else, but now that's just out the window, people. That's out the window. It doesn't exist anymore. That mutually assured destruction was a saying that indicated, yeah, we know that if we start something and somebody else starts something, we're all going to be destroyed. But that doesn't exist right now, it seems. It's just this high fevered pitch craziness, chaotic darkness, nonsensical people shooting off their mouths about shooting down Russian airplanes and do these people have any comprehension of what they could do with just their words? What they could spark with just their words? Now, we as individuals, spiritual individuals, we have to change our frequency, and I've talked about this before, and we have to elevate our frequency next to the Creator. As high as you can get. You must take refuge in that higher frequency, that higher consciousness, because to me that's the only way that anybody's going to get through this. And even if they don't get through it, well, then it's better to be in that frequency than it is on a lower frequency. So Thunder thinks about things like, doing videos on this lower frequency here that I've talked about, this low frequency of but I kind of do videos on more of an informational basis and not to freak people out, just to give you an update on what's going on. Give you a heads up, so to speak, so that you'll realize that, hey, this is where we're at, and I need to raise my frequency, and I need to get into that God space or that Great Spirit space and do what I can on a personal level to circumvent this. So anyway, my advice is we all stick together, and I want to talk to the members on the council and just say that we all need to send good thoughts and prayers to one another. And while all this is happening, everybody in their personal life is undergoing extreme pressures. I know I am. I'm having a conflict or a war with corporate America right now, and sometimes I win a battle, but that doesn't mean I win the war. But I want to thank everybody that's been sending me good energy and other things in regards to the support with that. And I send good energy to everybody out in the council and everybody that watches this video that these are perilous times. Okay? And it's time for the brotherhood of man to kind of group together. I don't know if there's any chance of like changing the tide now with the maniacs in control. But you can try, and you can send out good thoughts and good energy and good feelings and picture good outcomes and get on that frequency of like, let's make this all change for a good reason, a cleansing or a moving away from stagnation. So anyway, I'll leave it there today. This is Thunder. Think on these things. Don't get fearful. Don't get an unhealthy fear of like living in constant state of paranoia, but keep your head about you and just remember that there's a much higher power or powers at work here than maybe we realize. And that might be our only saving grace. That might be our only road to back to a more natural environment and a more loving world is for things to come to a head. And that's kind of what always happens, doesn't it? But again, it's more of a personal thing that you have to gain that peace of mind within yourself and strive for that and hope for the best. Anyway, peace unto you all, love to you all. This is Thunder, over and out.